It seems like every day some committee, either in the House or the Senate, is sitting down with a Trump administration official. And the left is all yelling at him. And the left is all giving him a hard time. Instead of saying, hey, thanks for closing the border. Thanks for lessening the number of people coming across the border illegally by 93% in some cases. No, that's not what it is at all. They, I think, want the American people, the American public, to think the Republicans are doing bad things and the Democrats are there to save them. I'm here to say they're wrong. I think that my next guest, Michael Guest, who is a U.S. representative, the great state of Mississippi, District 3, by the way, probably would agree with me. Michael, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Hey, doing great. Good to see you. And I agree with you 100%. Anybody that's going to say that the Democrats are trying to save this country, they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I just don't understand it because you've got people sitting in front of them that we know are doing the job. We can go back just a few months, and Mayorkas would sit there and lie his face off. And you would have, everybody from top to bottom in the Biden administration covering for the guy who couldn't cognitively do the job. And they were failing the American people. 15, 20 million people here illegally, people that are in our schools, that are harming our families. And if you called them out, they tried to call us xenophobic or something stupid. So now you've got something good going on. Do you think any of this show that they're putting on is effective at all?
I don't. I mean, look, just look at the numbers by themselves. Border encounters have decreased 95% since President Trump took office. We have a president who will actually enforce the law, who has turned the men and women of Border Patrol loose and told them he wants them to do their job. And it's been a dramatic turnaround, night and day from where we were just a year ago. And you're right, when you mention Secretary Mayorkas, he has to have been the most incompetent cabinet secretary that we've ever had. He repeatedly came to Congress. He lied. He said the border was secure. He said we had operational control. And we know that all those things weren't true. And it ultimately ended up in the fact that Secretary Mayorkas was impeached by the House of Representatives, the first time in modern history that we've impeached a cabinet secretary. And so night and day from where we were versus where we are today. And look, I can't thank Kristi Noem enough for the incredible job that she's done.
District 3 Republican, the great state of Mississippi. It's Michael Guest. We appreciate the time and the access. Was he incompetent, Representative, or was he doing it on purpose? Here's a guy who actually came up with DACA. I mean, he was the second in command under Jay Johnson, I think, and he came up with the idea that Obama could let people who came here illegally stay, just calling them, deferred action for childhood arrivals, which of course isn't constitutional. I get the feeling, and I wonder if you agree, that if it wasn't incompetence, it had to be that he wanted the border to be open.
I think you're right. I think that they were trying to use every way that they could to get around the existing laws. I mean, look at the use of the CBP One app,
right.
An app that was designed for commerce, which ultimately turned into us bringing aliens directly into the country without ever going through a background check. You're talking about the fact that he refused to enforce the law, that he always would find exceptions to allow aliens to remain in the country. And so, Secretary Mayorkas was either incompetent or he was complicit. But either way, he deserved to be impeached. And that's what the House of Representatives did. And I will tell you that it is such a breath of fresh air with what Kristi Noem has brought to that agency. And we want to support her. We want to give her the budget that she needs to make sure that she can continue to do her job.
Congressman, did you know that Chuck Schumer could just dismiss an impeachment? I didn't know that.
What
is that?
The first time in history, never made Mayorkas answer the articles of impeachment, never allowed us. I was one of the impeachment managers, never allowed us to present any evidence in the case. He just summarily allowed the Senate to take up a very limited debate of a couple hours and then outright dismiss the articles of impeachment. But again, it goes to show the cover up because they knew that Secretary Mayorkas had no legal grounding to stand on, no legal right to do the things that he had done. And I'll just tell you, having the opportunity to question Mayorkas on multiple times, I will tell you that the things that came out of his mouth were extremely unbelievable.
He's the chairman of the Subcommittee on Border Security, also a member of the DHS Committee, Committee on Ethics and Appropriations Committee as well. It's U.S. Representative Michael Guest. So tomorrow, Kristi Noem will come back in, and the left will put on a show again and act like somebody's going to arrest AOC or something, which is stupid. And they're going to make the argument, I guess, to the American people that we should not be doing enforcement like we're doing, when basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we just now finally following the law?
That's right. I mean, we've done something that we've not done during the entire Biden administration, is we're actually enforcing the law. President Trump came in day one. He issued an executive order surging resources to the border. He did away with the catch and release program. He reinstituted Remain in Mexico. Those policies that worked under Trump's first time, he reinstituted those his second term in office. And we've seen that the number of border crossings have dried up overnight. And so what we're now wanting to make sure that we're doing is that we are going to at some point try to codify those changes that the president put in place. We want to make sure that we are providing the resources for border construction, the resources for additional agents, the resources and investment in technology, and that not only are we doing that with Customs and Border Patrol, but we're also providing ICE what they need to make arrests, detain individuals who are in the country legally, and remove them back to their country of origin.
If memory serves me right, you took office in 23, right?
No, sir. No, sir. So I'm now in my seventh year in office. So I've had the opportunity to be on the Committee on Homeland Security.
That's even better.
Since being elected. So I started under the first Trump administration. I suffered through 4 years of Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas, and now I'm back for Trump 2.0.
Right. Well, the reason I ask is because H.R. 2 passed in, I believe, May in 23. H.R. 2 codified everything President Trump did the first time around into law to close the border and keep Americans safe. And then there was some fake border bill towards the end of the Biden, administration where somehow Trump told him, don't fix the border because I want the border to be broken so I can win. H.R. 2 was written exactly, if I'm right, Chip Roy is my representative. He and I have gone back and forth on this a lot. I'm pretty sure it just codified everything that Trump is doing now. Can we just dust that off, Michael, and bring it back up? Or do you need a brand new bill now to codify what the president's doing now?
I think H.R. 2 provides a great foundation for us to come in and look at codifying some of the changes that the president has done. You're right. As we argued over H.R. 2, the Democrats, the chicken littles, if you will, kept saying the sky was falling and that we were going to do all these mean, horrible, bad things. But all we were doing was just trying to enforce the border and making sure that we knew who was going to actually be entering our country. And then you talk about the bipartisan bill or the alleged bipartisan bill that was being drafted in the Senate. What the Democrats don't want to talk about is when that bill actually came to the floor in the Senate, that there were more Democrats who voted against the bill than there were Republicans who voted for it. There was one
Nobody knows
Republican.
That. Yeah.
One single Republican voted for the bill, and there were 5 Democrats who voted against the legislation. So it was more bipartisan against the bill than it was in support of that. And again, that was just trying to sabotage President Trump's reelection bid.
And by the way, it bears mentioning that Chuck Schumer never even brought H.R. 2 to the floor. It passed the House of Representatives. I think it probably needed 60 to get done in the Senate. It probably wouldn't have, but he didn't even present it because I think he was afraid that it might actually pass and we would close the border. It is U.S. Representative Michael Guest. So again, tomorrow when Kristi Noem sits down, do you expect the same show? They're going to go after her and use up all the time and not let her say anything? Give me a yes or no answer. How dare you not say yes or no? And then what will you guys try to actually achieve on the right? Because I think you guys are actually looking out for Americans.
Yeah, of course, they're going to demonize her. They're going to demonize the work that she's done, the work of our fine agents at CBP for actually enforcing the law and securing the border. But what we're going to talk to her about, is not only border security, which is extremely important, but if you look at the total umbrella of Homeland Security, under that umbrella, we're going to talk about TSA. We're going to talk about FEMA. We're going to talk about the Coast Guard. We're going to talk about ICE, Customs and Border Patrol. We're going to talk about HSI. So we're going to talk about that entire law enforcement component. But what you're going to hear from the Democrats is that the Republicans are trying to cut FEMA, but they're not going to talk about the fact that we are plussing up the border and actually investing more money in Homeland Security, and we're not cutting funds, and we're actually seeking to enforce the law.
The U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel partnership makes an historic investment in U.S. Steel. Americans will control and run U.S. Steel with unprecedented guarantees that American jobs are protected.
That's America first.
That's America first.
That's America first.
Well, you guys are trying to get rid of the bureaucracy, right? Central government shouldn't be doing emergency management. That should be at the states. So the states, if I get it right, will be asking for grants. I've got a major storm coming in here, the second one in 2 weeks. I need X amount of dollars, and that can expediently be brought to the states, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. When you look at FEMA, the Democrats are going to say that we want to do away with FEMA, that we don't want to support Americans in their time of need, that if there's a natural disaster, that the federal government won't be there to help. And that's just not true. What we hope to do, and I think what the administration wants to do, is we want to make FEMA leaner and meaner. We don't want it to be this bureaucracy that never gets things done. I mean,
Right.
I have storms that hit my state all the time, and we know that the important work that FEMA does, but people are tired of the bureaucracy. They're tired of the needless paperwork. And so I do think that FEMA needs to be reformed, and I think you're going to hear the Secretary talk about that tomorrow.
Is the left, do you think, and it's U.S. Representative District 3 Republican, great state of Mississippi, Michael Guest, do you think that we're done hearing about Abrego Garcia? The guy is an alleged human trafficker. He's certainly, by 2 judges, been deemed to be an MS-13 member. Those judges believe the undercover informant. The sheriff in Maryland said he's a member of MS-13. He had a last order of deportation to anywhere on earth except for El Salvador because of the 18th Street Gang, which doesn't exist anymore. Michael, he's back home. Do I have to keep on hearing about this guy? Are we done with him now or not?
Well, and you didn't even bring up the protection order that his wife filed
Yes.
against him because he allegedly assaulted her, according to the paperwork that she filed.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, for him to be the poster child of the immigrants that we need to bring back to the United States, we want to bring back an alleged gang member, someone who is potentially involved in human trafficking, someone who is alleged to have committed domestic violence
Right.
against his spouse. I mean, those arguments are ludicrous, and we're starting to see the people on the left pushing back. We're no longer hearing the Democrats talk about that because I think they know and they believe and they see now that is a losing argument.
I know that you're great when it comes to reconciliation. I wonder if you can't give us a primer on this. As far as I understand, and I want you to fix what I'm saying wrong here, reconciliation, you can't make new law, but you can change existing law, and you only need 51, a simple majority in the U.S. Senate. So what can you do with reconciliation? Can you extend the tax cuts? Can you do no tax on tips, no tax on overtime? Everybody's asking me about that every day, Representative. What can you accomplish in reconciliation? Am I right that you don't need a supermajority?
That's right. We can't pass substantive changes, but we can pass things that deal with budgetary, and so including tax policy. And so we have a markup that is occurring today in the Ways and Means Committee, where they're going to talk about extending the Trump tax cuts. They're looking at including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Those are some of the taxing decisions that they'll make, but we also have the opportunity to invest. And one of the things that we did on the Committee of Homeland Security is we marked up legislation last week that spends $69 billion, 46 of that on wall construction, another 10 on structures and hiring the additional agents, plus some additional money in some other areas. And so Republicans are going through by use of their budget reconciliation, we're going to extend the Trump tax cuts. We're going to make sure that we're providing the funds necessary to secure the border and make sure it remains secure. And also, we're going to make a generational investment in our military. And so that's what we're going to see come out of the House of Representatives. And that's what's going to hopefully be able to come out of the Senate and get to the president's desk between now and July 4th.
I had a guest on the other day, and I can't remember who it was, and I apologize, but it was somebody also from the government who seemed to suggest that the no tax on Social Security would have to be done separately. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime can be done in reconciliation. Can no tax on Social Security be done in that way as well, or no?
It could. Again, that's a tax policy, so
Okay.
that could be included. We're limited in the cap and how much taxes we can cut versus what we all set. And that's been one of the fundamental disagreements that the party has been going through the last several weeks. Are those of us who want to see deeper cuts? I'm part of that camp. I would like to see more cuts in
Yes.
federal spending and bigger increases in the tax savings. But we have other people who are concerned about cutting large amounts of our federal bureaucracy. And so we're continuing to have those discussions within the party. We're seeing those key markups this week being Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, and Ag. They will finish their markups this week. All those bills will then be sent to the Budget Committee. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to have a bill on the floor as early as next week that the entire House of Representatives can vote on.
That'd be amazing. District 3 Republican, the great state of Mississippi. It's Michael Guest. Let me ask you about the Confucius Institutes. It appears as though China funded sent a bunch of money to a bunch of universities and just said, hey, let us do the Confucius Institutes. And these universities who wanted the money allowed that to happen. Now they're pushing an anti-American, pro-Chinese ideology in these schools. I thought there was a push to get rid of them. Do they still exist?
The numbers are far fewer. Late 2019, the numbers were just over 100, say 110-ish Confucius institutions. Now we're down to about 15 to 20. So we have seen a substantial drop, but there are still universities that partner with the CCP and allow these Confucius institutes to exist on their campus. We believe that they are spreading communist propaganda. We believe that they are using these Confucius institutes to infiltrate our research institutions. And so August Pfluger from the great state of Texas introduced legislation which passed the House, which says that any universities that partner with China in these Confucius institutes are something similar, because in some cases they've just changed the name. The institute still exists. They just call them something different. But if those institutes exist on those campuses, then they will not receive any money from the Department of Homeland Security in the form of grants or any reimbursements back to those specific schools.
So this is a DHS thing. This is not a Department of Education thing.
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The bill that we passed that August was able to get off the floor last week did deal with grants from the Department of Homeland Security.
Why exactly would we ever allow for that partnership? It would be like North Korea saying, hey, why don't we start building some North Korean institutes, or Cuba saying, hey, what the hell, we're 90 miles away. Why don't we go build some institutions? Were we just falling asleep? How would we allow somebody that we know is an antagonist to our way of life, to Western civilization, to come and educate our kids? I don't get it.
You know, it was a bad decisions from administrations prior. This did not happen under President Trump's watch, but President Trump pushed back his first term in office, and now we're pushing back. You would think that if there would be any legislation that would pass this chamber with bipartisan support overwhelmingly, that this would have been the legislation that would have passed. And while it did pass, there were 155 or so individuals who voted against it, most of those coming from the Democrat Party. So, you know, it is very disappointing that the Democrats will choose to support communist China over protecting American citizens.
One last question, if you don't mind, Representative, just about 30 seconds on this. We're starting to see Tom Tillis now, for a couple of times in the past week, has gone against something President Trump has said, didn't want Ed Martin to be the U.S. attorney. He also is now going against the lower pharmaceutical prices. I feel as though the right or the Republicans in the House are more congealed, and the Republicans in the Senate, I'm not so sure about. Do you feel the same way or not?
I do. I mean, I think if you look at the House, I mean, we're completely behind President Trump. We want to make sure that he has the resources and the ability and the support of the House to pass his agenda. I don't know that we see that same support in the Senate. I hope I'm wrong. I hope as legislation advances to the Senate that they quickly pass it. But look, President Trump was elected, I believe, with a mandate in his time for House and Senate Republicans to get behind the president and pass his legislation.
From Mississippi 3, it's Michael Guest, U.S. Representative. Go to guest.house.gov. Michael, great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's do it again soon, okay?
Will do. Yes, sir.